I choose not to have them. This video is going to be about my experiences with having periods rather than an educational video about them. If you really want to know about periods, that's a video for another day. As for today, I just want to talk about me. When I was about 9 and 10 years old, I used to see my aunts rolled up on the couch like in a fetal position, moaning and crying about how painful their abdomens were, and when I'd ask why they were acting like that, they'd just scream at me. It's cramps! But I didn't know what the fuck that meant. And at some point my grandmother told me, she said that once a month, a female has a period. And she told me that it's when you bleed from your vagina and blah 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 blah. I didn't give a fuck. Okay, I was 9 and 10 years old. She told me that one day I'd have a period and that it would be a magical experience. She said that I will have cramps, I'll have swelling, I'll be uncomfortable. And she also told me that when you live in a house full of women, your periods tend to sync up as if you're a sheep. That did not sound in the slightest interesting or magical to me. Another thing that my grandmother always insisted on was privacy. When we'd go to the store to get pads or tampons or something, she would always hide them under things inside the cart, and I didn't understand why, because like I said, I didn't give a shit about a lot of things, and I still don't. She said it's because it's private. You know, the person who is checking out your products at the cash register doesn't give a shit about what you're buying. Neither do the people in the store. No one's gonna go, oh, she's on her period. No one fucking cares. I would just throw it in the cart and then she'd look at me like, and then she'd put it under stuff like I needed to learn how to keep that stuff private. And I was all like, bitch, I live in the 21st century. During the time that my aunts were being complete and utter wusses, rolled up on the couch and acting like everything sucked, I just remember whenever it happened, I'd just tell them they can do it in their bedroom. I don't fucking give a shit if you're having cramps. You shouldn't go into the living room where everyone can see you like you're an exhibitionist of pain and go and then kick and throw pillows at everyone who comes by you. No, you can go to your fucking bedroom. And I thought that they were complete and utter wusses. I was like, there's no way in hell that it hurts that bad. She said that she had my other aunts put a colored dot on the calendar at the start of their period, and they'd put a dot on the calendar when it ended, so that everyone can see when their periods were. And she said that I would do that too. I'd pick a color and I'd put a dot on it. I just thought that was disgusting. Why would I want to have a period at the same time as my aunts? So eventually, when I was 11, the first month of school, I had my first period. It was not at all exciting, it wasn't magic. Above all, it wasn't painful. I was at school, I went to the bathroom because I had to pee, and I discovered that there was a little bit of pinkness in my underwear, and when I wiped, there was a skid mark of blood. I didn't tell anyone. I just stuffed toilet paper in my underwear and did nothing. Though my period actually came in handy because that day I had PE and I never liked PE. I hated PE with a passion. And I told the teacher that I was having cramps so I could sit out, and I was in too much pain to run, and pretended the whole time on the stairs that I was in pain. But I felt nothing, actually. There was nothing, just blood. I don't remember ever officially telling my grandmother that I'd started my period, like even until now, like I never actually said I've started my period. But I'm sure they knew immediately because I was using toilet paper, though I was flushing it so it didn't make a difference. If you use toilet paper, you roll it up and it ends up leaking into your underwear. And I did my own laundry, so I don't know how long it took them to figure out that I was having my period, but nobody talked to me about it. And a couple years later, my grandma just, I guess, assumed that I was having my period because if I was acting cranky, she'd look at me and say,
"Are you on your period?"
See, that's another thing that doesn't make sense to me because I'm cranky all the time, okay? All the fucking time. But suddenly, if I'm acting really pissed off and cranky, I must be on my period. That's a stereotype that I guess doesn't work with me because every single time she asked me that, I wasn't. There has not been one time out of the hundreds of times she has ever asked me if I'm on my period that I was actually on my period. So basically, this is what happened for me. I had my periods every month or a little longer than a month. I mean, it depends. I wasn't paying attention to how regular it was because I didn't give a shit. And it turned out that I don't feel cramps and I don't swell and none of that magical stuff happens. There's no glitter and I don't get cranky. I mean, like I said, I'm always cranky, so it makes no real difference. With this in mind, understanding that for me, I don't get cramps or anything like that, I thought that my aunts were making it up, that they were rolling around on the couch and that they were complete and utter wusses, that one little pain or ping in their abdomen meant that they were going to go wailing off to the magical land of pay attention to me. But I've learned a lot since I turned 18. I was only 11 at the time, and I believed that periods were like mine and that people were making up the pain and cramps and stuff. But when I turned 18, I actually was able to research on my own, and I learned a lot about things that I had already experienced, like periods and sex. So naturally, I just felt like they were being little bitches. And I didn't understand the concept of Midol. I was like, how is Midol any better than any other painkiller? I took one for a headache though, and it's actually pretty effective. Anyway, for as long as I can remember, all the way from there up until last year, I've had cramps a couple times. I can't pinpoint exactly when, and they were so mild they didn't really do anything to me. Usually what happens for me is that I will notice that I'm going to be having my period because I will start bleeding, obviously. My periods usually last about 3 days. On the first day, it starts from blotting to tapering to something really heavy. On the second day, it's like a waterfall of blood. Disgusting, everywhere, blood just comes out. And on the third day, it trickles down to blotting and then it's gone. On the second day, when it's bleeding the most, the only thing akin to pain I get is a slight ache on my lower back. And that's basically it. No cramps, no bloating, just blood. Also, I'm quite thick, but when I'm on my period, I feel damn hot. And sometimes I wonder why I don't feel like that all the time. Maybe I should experiment with that. I was on birth control slightly when I was about 16 because I wanted to make my periods regular, mostly because I never knew when they would happen, and I didn't like not knowing. Because I don't get the symptoms, I don't get the signs. I would have to wait until suddenly I overflowed in my underwear. I also don't like having periods, not because of the non-existent cramping or bloating or anything, but because it's just a mess that I have to deal with every 3 or 4 weeks that serves no purpose for me. I have no intention of ever having children coming out of me. The only thing that's good about it is that having them regularly lets you know that you're healthy. Now that I know I'm healthy, I don't give a shit about whether I have them or not. Over a year ago, I ended up making a friend, and that friend and I ended up having sex. Naturally, I sought out some birth control. For several months, I took the pill. I took Mononessa, and I only took the active pills because I was not interested in having a period. It was odd because after several months, I ended up bleeding a little bit. The bleeding a little bit lasted like 3 months. So I stopped it, had a period, started over, and it continued as if it never happened. The reason I was on the pill is because I went in for the Nexplanon, and they called my insurance to ask if they would cover it. My insurance was being an asshole and saying that they couldn't figure out what they were talking about because my address was different or some stupid shit. A little over a month ago, I did manage to get the Nexplanon implanted into my left arm. The insurance finally was able to be contacted and all that stuff, so now I have a form of birth control that lasts 3 years that should also keep me from having periods. Like I said, this is not at all an informational video, but I mean, if you're one of those people out there that doesn't have cramps and you're wondering why, it turns out you're fine. You're healthy. You are the normal one. Everyone else, the majority who has cramps and bloating and all of that other stuff, there's nothing wrong with you either. Try some relaxation techniques, I guess. This video is mostly just to say that I'm an oddball. I have no interest in having periods or babies, and it's okay. I'm so glad that we live in a day and age where I can actually go to the doctor and say, I don't want to have periods, and not have periods. That's amazing, especially since, you know, coming from a time where birth control used to be illegal. It's just very fascinating. Whoa, whoa. I'm Alice. I'm the Oogie Boogie Man, and I will see you next time. Chamatane.